This is Mike Franklin, the property tax guy, and it's February 18th, 2026, and I'm going to review a Board of Assessment, City of Syracuse Board of Assessment review hearing that I had today, and they live stream it on YouTube, and so they have a lot of cases, so I cropped out my case, and I'm going to narrate what transpired in this hearing, because you don't know the property and you don't know the circumstance, so I'm going to explain it to you, and I will also provide an unedited version of the hearing, but I'm going to narrate it so you can follow what it is that I'm talking about. Now, first of all, the guy in the center is the chairman of the Board of Assessment Review, Joe Saya. He's been the chairman for 20 years or more, and he just got appointed before the new mayor took office to another 5 years. So we're stuck with these people again. One of the issues I've had with this panel is that there's 5 of them. They're all white and they're all Catholic in a city that's more than 50% non-white, and just it strikes me as a bunch of cronyism is going on here, and you're going to see what transpires in this hearing. Maybe you get a pretty good understanding. Josiah was a real estate broker. I think he's a financial planner. The guy on the left is what's his name? His brother was the city auditor, but he's an insurance agent, which I don't know what that has to do with real estate valuation. I don't know the guy on the left. I forget what he does. The woman on the right is a paralegal, which is great experience, but it's got nothing to do with real estate valuation. And then there's another guy who's usually on it, who works for a credit union. I think the Fireman's Credit Union or something like that, which is great, but I don't know what it has to do with real estate valuation. I'm a real estate broker, and I was a small claims assessment review hearing officer for the Unified Court System, and I've got about 13 years experience doing this stuff, and in excess of 400 cases, 100 of them as the small claims judge. So I believe that I'm pretty qualified to handle these situations. Joe is a real estate broker. He should be able to value the property. But after having heard these cases for 20 years, it will become apparent in this hearing that he really doesn't understand equalization, which is what this is all based on, because the city of Syracuse hasn't done a revaluation since 1996, and which creates, when inventories haven't been updated in 29 years, it puts the city in a very a bad legal standing, but he doesn't seem to recognize that. They basically go on to intuition. They don't seem to know what welcome stranger law is. They don't know selective assessment, and and I don't mean to criticize these people, but this has been going on for too long. And so there's 2 other properties. Last year there was 209 Parish Lane. These people denied me, and said that I was unqualified and unprepared because I refused to go inside the house and take pictures. I'm not going to provide public information, the insides of people's houses. It's a security and privacy issue. I'm not going to do it. I'm going to assess the property from the street like the assessor does. Now, he's going to suggest that we should let him walk through the property. Well, the assessor provided 5 comparable sales. Did they walk through those properties? No. So why should you walk through this one? I know one of their comparables has a finished rec room. It's like 600 square feet bigger. I guarantee you there's more than one bathroom in that house, but it's not in the inventory because they haven't done a reval since 1996, and that's what happens. But anyway, you're going to see that these people have an attitude towards me, and this assessor in particular, over on the right, she's handling this case. She didn't do the assessment of this in 2022. This guy Ed Fohl, who was fired for some unknown reason, is the one that did it. She knows nothing about this situation. She's relying on the burden of proof is on the taxpayer, and all she's going to do is hand over a report that I asked for that they refused to give me. But she has an attitude towards me, and she's never spoken to me before in her life. I've never met her personally. Obviously, my reputation precedes me because we've had these issues with their other deputy assessors, but she has no justification. She doesn't know me, but you'll see she has a real attitude. So let's get into it.
That sounds good. First, property 207 Parish Lane. Good evening. How are you?
Hey, everybody. Right up, Fraser. You're in public.
Yes, you definitely get a choice. If you are gonna, it'd be good to allow us just to swear you in, for lack of a better word, but and then you'll be said if you do want to say something. Okay, but you certainly don't have to.
Yeah, they're going to swear us in. They want us to swear to tell the truth, the whole truth. They used to say, "So help you God," because these are all Catholics up here. And but as you'll see with all the other hearings, he doesn't do that anymore. He just asks you to swear to tell the truth and the whole truth, and he leaves the God part out now. So at least I've made some impact. But the thing is, I asked them, has anybody ever been prosecuted for perjuring themselves in these hearings, in the past 20 years? And he said no, which is, I had one of their deputy assessors bold-faced lie in one of our hearings, and I could prove it. The oath means nothing to him. So I don't know why they bother with this oath nonsense. It's ridiculous.
It sounds like you're represented by Mr. Franklin. Okay. All right. So whenever both of you are ready, if you can raise your right hands, and if you will, raise yours as well. Okay. State your name for the record. Okay.
Michael Franklin.
Ian Gallagher. Okay. You affirm to tell the truth and give accurate information to the best of your ability.
I do.
Okay, very good. All right, so let me just read in this.
I'll also note one of the assessment problems that the city of Syracuse has is that the churches are exempt in this city, and what's happening is that these churches are going out of business, and so the taxpayers are stuck tearing down these monstrous buildings, and it can cost $1 million to tear down one of these buildings that never contributed to the tax base. So my understanding is about 50% of the properties in the city of Syracuse are tax exempt. And so that's why they have a problem with their tax rate, is because these people aren't contributing. They're handing out too many exempt status. There's supposed to be a separation of church and state in this country, so why are they subsidizing churches? So I don't know why people aren't upset about having to pay the taxes for other people. I could care less about their church stuff. They can do all the churching they want, whatever denomination it may be, but pay your taxes like everybody else.
This property here, I just want to confirm some assessment information, and then I'll turn it over to you.
By the way, I'm the bald guy on the right, the feeble-looking bald guy, just so you know, and my client's to the left.
Okay, so is this a single family? Single family, current tentative assessed value $92,000 with a land value of $16,900. Okay. That would be an equatable market value based on the assessment of $176,923. Petitioner believes the fair market value is $150,000, and that would be an assessed value of $78,000. Just check. just see if I can pick anything out of the application. And then you're Tracy Politas. Yeah, okay, all right, no problem. I assumed you were the same person, of course, so no worries. Okay, Mr. Franklin, I'll turn it over to you.
What I'm doing there is I provided some submissions to them. So I made a copy for each one of the Board of Assessment Review members and the assessor. And I did an analysis. Residential properties in New York State are assessed based on comparable sales, adjusted for unequal. And so unequal is when the properties are as good or better that are assessed for less. So I showed the comparables that are next door and across the street. Those are the best comps, and the assessor didn't give me theirs until just before the hearing, so I didn't have time to look at theirs, which is inappropriate. But I also looked at the assessments of the neighborhood properties to see what's going on, and so I provided them a copy of that analysis. I provided a picture of the subject property and each of the other properties so they could see what's going on, and then I made adjustments like an appraisal. It's like one of them only had one bathroom. This has 1.5. I make an adjustment for the bathroom. Some of these properties have like 280 more square feet, or their garage is attached or detached versus attached, and I make adjustments for those kinds of things. And I showed the adjustments. So, for example, one of the properties was assessed for $6,000 less, which is about 11,000 fair market value less than this property, but it's substantially larger, like 280 square feet. So why should this one be assessed than one that's substantially larger? So I explain all of those things, and so I'm providing that for the record. They won't read it, I guarantee you.
Tracy bought this house in 2003 for $64,000.
Okay, I see that.
There's been no improvements, no renovations. That is the house. The top picture is this house.
Keep in mind, she paid $64,000 for it in 2003. Was currently assessed at $164,875 fair market value. That will come up in the conversation.
I'll first contest that the grade says average for the New York State Assessor's Manual. It's economy. I think you can look at it. It's economy grade. So they have the grade as classified.
What is the grade?
It's average. It's average, yeah.
It's average.
It's clearly an economy grade house per the New York State Assessor's Manual. I didn't bring a copy of the New York State Assessor's Manual. It's obviously online. Every time I bring it, nobody reads it anyway, so trust me, it's misclassified.
What are some of the characteristics of economy?
Just basic graded construction as opposed to more elaborate kitchen, more elaborate bathrooms. It's just basic construction.
It's not updated.
No, we're talking about the construction grade at the moment.
Okay.
But anyway, you just common sense. You look at the picture. It's economy grade. not a big deal as far as my argument is concerned, but it is misclassified. The assessment was done in 1996, so it's not surprising that the inventory is, but the thing is, the inventory hasn't changed since 1996, quite literally. So the gist of the argument is, this is the smallest house on the block, but it's the highest assessed block on the house on the block. And like I said, she paid $64 for it in 2003. Since then, she's done a roof. That's it. No improvements, no renovations.
Do you have any pictures of the inside?
I do not have pictures of the inside. I do not provide pictures of the inside. I know there's been a bone of contention with this. You think that I'm unqualified and unprepared because I don't go in people's houses. I assess properties based in the same manner that the assessor does from the street because I don't want to invade your privacy. And it becomes a security issue because if I submit that to you, it becomes public record. And the interior of her house is not public record. It's none of the people's business.
Okay. And if we thought that the assessor should take a walk through just to confirm the non-updated condition?
It'd be a cold day in hell for me to get in my house, but that's up to her. I advise her against it because that creates an unequal situation or a selective assessment because you do.
No, we do that. We do that.
Did you go in each of these houses?
No, but we go through houses that I actually have personally when we request the people
You shouldn't
let
even
us.
ask because this isn't rushed.
So here's what he's doing. I was talking about the grade of the house. That's the quality of the construction of the property. They had it misclassified. I pointed that out because it just demonstrates that the assessors, they don't even know the New York State Assessor's Manual and how things are supposed to be classified. So they can't be presumed to be correct if they don't even know how to classify the property in the first place. So that's why I brought it up. I didn't really push the argument that much because probably the three of the comps were also misclassified. So they're actually comparable. They're just all misclassified as, But so as far as the comparable analysis, if they did the inventory correctly, they would be comparable. They are all, economy grade because it's an economy grade, neighborhood. They're economy grade comps. But he wants to go in the house to verify the condition. Well, we're not arguing the condition because all the properties that are comps are all classified in the same grade. The same condition. So we're not making an argument about condition. We're conceding that the assessor is correct about condition, which is average. It's an average condition. She keeps her house clean, But it was built in 1950, and it's kind of a tired old house. It's 75 years old, and but there's. We don't need to make adjustments for condition because all the comparables, assessed and and the ones that sold, are all the same classification. So he wants to go in your house for what reason? It just. But he says that he does go into people's houses, but there's 5 comparables that the assessor used that is claiming that where they came up with their figure. Well, he didn't go into any one of those, but he wants to go in this one. Well, how does that help unless you went to all of them and can compare them all? Because one of those houses has a 568 square foot finished basement, and it says it only has 1 bathroom. I guarantee you it has more than 1 bathroom, but the inventory isn't correct. So if you're not going to go into that one, why should you go into this one? It's ridiculous. And plus, the government's cost accounting issues just don't trump people's privacy and their security and basically their constitutional property rights. It's just, his even suggesting going in people's houses is just so ridiculous. It's just so over the top, outrageous. I just don't know who he thinks he is. You know, I don't mean to get personal with these people. He's probably not a bad guy, but this is not right, and the city of Syracuse should not be conducting business in this fashion.
For God's sake, you know, the government's cost accounting issues.
You didn't bring any pictures, so we just want to confirm possibly that it is in the condition that you say it is.
Well, I'm not challenging the
Again, the condition is irrelevant because all the cops are the same classification.
condition. I'm challenging the grade.
Fine. She said,
The assessor made no argument about condition, and neither did I, but he wants to bring it up for whatever reason.
that it is not updated as far as the condition is concerned. So we may want to confirm that on a walkthrough.
Okay,
But
no,
You know, his job is to hear the evidence and make a determination, not to do his own valuation. But that's what he's trying to do, and he wants to walk through your house. It's ridiculous.
either here or there.
I would advise you to never let you in any of my
Okay.
clients' houses.
That's fine.
If you hold that against them,
He says that's fine, but he doesn't mean that it's fine. It means he completely disagrees. And I guarantee you they're going to rule against me on this case. And then I guarantee you we're going to go to SCAR, and then I'm going to win again. You know, like clockwork.
we'll end up in court every time.
We won't hold it against the petitioner. We just won't know for sure
You do it from
how
you do it from-
unupdated the property
It's
is.
just inappropriate, you know. But anyway, and speaking of which, I
How do
thought
you think an appraiser does an appraisal?
because the property owner gives them permission to go in the house,
Okay.
and the bank a bank appraisal is done for the bank.
He's worrying about an appraiser going into people's houses. What you need to understand about appraisals is it says right in it that the appraisal is owned by the appraiser. You know, he has copyrights to it, and the bank that paid him to do it. It doesn't belong to the property owner. It belongs to the bank. It's, you know, they're just verifying the value of the property. So the reason you let the appraiser in the house is so that they'll loan you money. That's why you let them in the house. As far as for assessment purposes, you have no legal obligation to let these people in your house. And not only do you have no legal obligation, but I don't think the city of Syracuse has proper insurance for their people to be going in their house because it creates a security issue. And if one of their assessors, and they've had some assessors get prosecuted for kickback schemes, so there's other underhanded things that go on. So let's just say one of their assessors goes into the house, finds out something, and gives information to a criminal who goes in and does some criminal act. The city may be on the hook for that. So the city doesn't have insurance for that. They don't have training for that. It's just not appropriate.
And it's done for it's done for
For the bank.
It's for the bank. So
The
it says
buyer
right in the
pays for
appraiser,
it.
it's only the appraiser can use it, owns it. Only the bank owns it. It's not for assessment purposes.
Sure, that's fine. I'm just
He says it's fine again, but he doesn't agree with anything that I'm saying. But he, we're spending all our time talking about appraisals, and talking about the law that after 20 years he doesn't know what it is, and nor does he know the classifications for the New York State Assessor's Manual. He knows nothing about it.
saying that how does the appraiser
But if the
pay
property
into the
owner wants to
property?
submit it for their own purposes, they could.
Yes, but I'm not looking for the appraisal.
So I wanted to introduce who all these people are. The woman on the right is the deputy assessor in charge of this case. She didn't do the assessment change in 2022. The guy that did it has been terminated for some reason. I've heard rumor that he may have done something illegal, and he was fired. That's so I don't know the facts. They won't give you their personnel records and stuff, so you don't know what goes on. But there have been one of their deputy assessors was sentenced to 5 years in prison for a kickback scheme, and I wouldn't be surprised if it was something of that nature. But anyway, so she knows nothing about about this whole scenario in this neighborhood. She knows nothing about it. So that's the assessor, Ann Gallagher. I believe she's the second in command in the assessment department. This woman, well, the guy that does all the talking, he's the chairman of the Board of Assessment Review. His name is Joe Saya, and he's been the chairman for 20 years. And he just got appointed before the new mayor came in. And so on the last mayor, he got appointed another 5 years of this. It's just nuts. 20 years, and he doesn't appear to know, what equalization means, as you're going to find out shortly. But he was a real estate broker, but I believe he's a financial planner. He is qualified, in theory, to know about real estate valuation. The woman to the right of him was a paralegal, which is great experience, worked for a big firm, but I don't know what it has to do with real estate valuation. The guy at the left of Jose is an insurance agent. His brother was the city auditor. I don't know what independent insurance agency has to do with real estate valuation. It's a crony position. And then the other guy, I don't know him. I don't know what his background is, but it's not in real estate. That I know.
Saying is the appraiser goes into the property to do an appraisal.
But it's a private thing between the bank and the person because the bank has a financial interest in it. So the people don't let them in the house in that instance, they don't get the money for the mortgage. But this is a government issue.
All right.
But also, I foiled the capital sales report and capital assessment report and the cost valuation report for this property and for each of these capitals. I would have liked to have had their capital sales report so that we could talk about the same data. I talked downstairs to the assessor, and they said that they gave the law department the data 3 weeks ago, and they haven't provided it. I went across the hall tonight and asked them where the data is, and they told me that they have 19 days left to give it to me.
Yeah, so I went to the law department and asked them, where my FOIL data was. And these reports take 2, 3, 5 minutes to run, but they want to. So by law, they have to give 5 days. They have 5 days to acknowledge my Freedom of Information Act request, which they did, and then they have to provide a date certain. And they put the date out like a month and a half because they're so busy and backed up with FOILs. Well, the thing is that apparently they're not allocating enough resources to FOIL to be in compliance with the law because they have 20 days to fulfill. And their date certain was beyond the legal requirement. So we may have a lawsuit in that regard if that's how they want to play. Now, at the time of this hearing, they're still within the legal time constraints. So them not having provided the data at this point is not unlawful, but it's bad customer service. They should have provided the data so we can have an apples and apples conversation about the comps. But they want to withhold it to intentionally obstruct me. And they're obstructing the taxpayer. My client's paying a lot of money for these taxes, and she expects that they should be transparent about what they're doing and spend 3 minutes to run a report so that we can talk about the same set of data so we can get to the bottom of what's right and wrong on this property. Because that's what it's about. It's about getting it right, nothing more and nothing less. That's why we're there. And the reason she called me is that she thought there was something wrong. And I looked at it, and there's something wrong. And that's why we're here. So.
When it takes 2 minutes to run these reports, that's what got us in the lawsuit the last time. And I prevailed because Public Officers Law 87.2G says that if they have the ability to provide the data from a database readily, they have to do that. And the assessor told me today that the law department told them that they're only to give me what they provided at the hearing. That is violation of New York state law.
Yeah, so I think it was 3 years ago now. They weren't giving me any data. They just denied me and just thumbed their noses at me. And so I had to sue them in state Supreme Court. And I'd never sued anybody in state Supreme Court before. And I didn't want to spend a bunch of money on a lawyer, so I had to figure out how to do it pro se. And they have 28 people in their legal department. And I beat them in Supreme Court. It took me a year to do it. And by the time the year was up, the hearings were passed, so the data is of no use to me. So I spent $430 in filing fees and a year of my time to get data that's obsolete. It's outrageous. And they do it because they know that they can get away with it, because most people aren't going to go through that. They're not going to pay $430 for something that they're entitled to by law that they should have gotten in 5 minutes. But I'm stubborn that way. And so I prevailed in state Supreme Court. And now they're doing it again. And if they violate the law in the same fashion, that means they're in contempt of court. And if they violate, if I don't get what I asked for, I'm going to have to sue them in Supreme Court. And this time, they'll be paying the filing fees, and I'm going to ask for damages. And there'll be depositions and interrogatories from a bunch of people in their assessment department and law department, and we're going to get to the bottom of whether they intentionally evaded FOIL. And if they did, it's a criminal act. It's not a misdemeanor. It's only a violation. But the city can't indemnify people who violate the law, paying their attorney's fees. So the employee will get stuck paying their own attorney's fees, which might be unaffordable for a city employee. So they might want to abide by the law.
And if I don't get my data, if they were 1 day late, I'm going to sue, but this time you'll be in contempt of court because we've already been through this once. So,
I don't want to be one of those cranky old men, ranting and raving about these things, but they need to abide by the law, and I intend to hold them to it.
We could have had a more productive discussion here if the assessor provided me the data, behaved in an upfront manner, and was transparent about what they're doing. They're hiding something. In this case, they're hiding the fact that they haven't done an assessment since 1996. And so what happened here, what transpired, is that the assessment was established in 96.
By the way, what happens when you haven't done a revaluation in 29 years is it creates unequal situations. People have upgraded houses and this, that, and the other. The inventories change, and they haven't been updated. So it creates unequal situations. Well, all the assessor wants to talk about is the comparable sales report. But the thing is, the comparable sales report isn't relevant, when you haven't done a reval in 29 years, because if you use the sale, you're violating welcome stranger, as we established in my previous 2 cases. And so, they're not making an argument. They're just saying that the assessor is presumed to be correct and the burden of proof is on the taxpayer. The assessor made no argument because she can't make an argument. She doesn't know anything about it.
Then they changed it for some unknown reason in 2017. And then they changed it again in 22, a 20% increase in 2022 with no improvements, no revaluation. Okay?
Do you think the market went up from 96 to 2017?
We'll talk about that in a minute.
Okay.
But, so this is 207 Parish Lane. With you guys previously, we had cases in 209 last year and 202 the previous year for that. You denied me in both cases. I took it to SCAR and I won both cases. The difference is that the hearing officer recognized that he violated welcome stranger. It's clear. Apparently you guys don't recognize that. This is not a welcome stranger case because the property didn't sell. But in 2022, those 2 sales, they used that against her and her 20%. 20%. And so if you recall, the first time we did 202 Parish Lane, Syracuse.com had a map of all the properties. 1 block away, they didn't do anything. The next block up, nothing. In this one, they had 5, 10, 20. So they stuck her with 20. The smallest house is assessed for the most because they grabbed it for 20%. So her assessment, although technically not illegal like the previous 2 were, it was based, in other words, Ed Pohl saw the 2 sales. He illegally assessed those properties and took those and applied it to this. It's improper. It's improper. You need to do a revaluation. That's the bottom line. And hopefully at some point you'll get to it. So
Let me just ask you a quick question. You obviously are familiar with real estate. Do you believe that property values have increased from 1996 to 2017 and now today? Do you believe that?
I think that you're being disingenuous.
I'm trying to. No. You're saying that you're saying that the property was increased in value 20% from 1996 to 2000.
It was 64,000 in 2003.
Let's go back to 96. What was it assessed at?
It's 71,900.
All right.
I don't
So
know what the
then-
equalization rate was then.
Right. So it was assessed for 71,000 back in 96, and then it was never increased until 2017.
Yeah, so here's the thing. It was assessed when she purchased it for $71,900. She paid $64 for it. If they had been at 100% equalization, the assessment should have been $64,000 in 2003. So obviously it was $71,900 prior to her purchasing it. So if she knew me then, of course she didn't own it then, but we would have had that fixed, back in 2003. So it should have been 64 in 2003, not 71,900. But it had been established as 71,900, probably previously for whatever reason. But that should have been corrected if they were doing it, if they were at 100% equalization, but they're not. But right now the equalization rate is 52%. So it's assessed for 92,000, which brings it up to like 164,000, something like that. Let's see. So I went from 96, 86, 76. So I'm asking for 18. So I'm asking about 35,000 is what I'm asking to be reduced on fair market value. So the equalization rate in 2026 is 52, but in 2003 it was probably 95%. So at 71,900, that means the fair market value was like 80, even though it should have been 64. So the assessment should have been like 60, and fair market value is 64. But the equalization over the year has gone up because they haven't done a revaluation. So now it's 52. So now the fair market value is double. So he's patronizing me, saying, well, you know real estate, because he knows I'm a real estate broker. Haven't the values gone up? Everybody knows the value's going up. It's ridiculous that he's talking to me this way. I don't know who he thinks he's talking to. But yes, the fair market values have gone up. But that's accounted for in the equalization of 52%. So that's already been addressed. So on top of the market increase, they raised the assessment 20%. Without an improvement, without anything. Just arbitrary and capricious based on two sales that were illegally used, that were established in two previous court proceedings. That's the point. He's been the chairman of the Board of Assessment Review for 20 years, and he doesn't understand. You hear him saying, well, it went up 20% since 1996. No, it went up 300% since 2003. It's gone up 300,000%, because fair market value then was 64, and now it's like 164. So that's 180. Let me just verify the calculation here. The assessment on this property is it is 92,000 divided by 0.52 equals. The fair market value is 176,923. I'm asking it for be 150. I'm asking for 26,000. And when these other properties are larger and they're assessed for 13,000 less, I don't think asking for 25 is unreasonable. I think it's proper. So he needs to understand it's not just the assessment increase. There was already a market increase taken into consideration in the equalization rate. He doesn't seem to get that, which is pretty concerning, being the chairman of the Board of Assessment Review for 20 years. So like I said, 80-90% of this conversation is about the law and about appraisals instead of the actual property. And so crazy.
The assessment with the fair market value obviously went up because of the equalization rate.
Okay.
The assessment should not increase unless there's been an improvement or a revaluation, neither of which was done.
Well, the city has done a revaluation, and we're all in agreement that should be done sooner rather than.
Yeah, so you need to do one, but you have to understand that I'm correct, and that it's very clear that he doesn't understand equalization.
Later, but regardless, there's no question that property values in the city of Syracuse have increased from 1996 to 2017,
Which was addressed in the equalization rate.
from 2017 to 2025, 26, and it's indisputable.
Right, but you need to abide by the law. It falls to not abide by the law.
Okay. Okay.
But I provided this here.
Yep.
It talks about two things. One is the comparable sales, which there are two. They go into different neighborhoods in their comparable sales report. 3 of their 5 assessments are in different neighborhoods. And they're a different classification.
Appraiser uses within a half a mile radius, and then if they can't find anything, then it's a mile radius.
Yeah, but the neighborhood, the immediate neighborhood is the best indication.
Do you want to use a half-mile radius, or do you want to use the house that's next door or across the street? I think next door and across the street is better.
So I review the sales comparison. So for example, 202 is assessed for 86,000. This is assessed for 92. It's substantially bigger. And I address that in here. You can read that. And then 209, same thing, substantially. Has a finished record, this doesn't. More square footage, so on and so forth.
All right, let me
address that.
give me 1 second here.
Yeah, I wanted to clarify one thing. I said that this was the smallest house with the largest assessment. Okay, that I'm talking about the comparables that I've addressed, that the assessor hasn't even discussed. It's not the highest assessed, but if you make the adjustments, it's the highest assessed. So it's not one property, the assessment is higher, but it's a lot bigger and all this other stuff. But if you adjust the inventory to be equal, this is the highest assessed property.
Go on to the city and see if we have anything.
I'm going to give you
Just one more quick thing. And then I go through the comparable assessment. So I take other houses. I went up and down the street and I looked at some of them are double the size of hers. So I just picked out the ones that are close to yours. And I made an adjustment like an appraisal in this thing. So you can see where my adjustments came from. But if you just eyeball the first one, and you compare it to the second one, and the third one, if you just look at county census, there should be an adjustment. Those should not be assessed less than hers. They should be more than hers, but they're less.
We'll definitely take a close look at what you provided.
My ass, they won't look at it at all.
Is it correct that this is the highest assessed property on the street? Okay.
She doesn't know because she doesn't know anything about it.
something nice to years.
It's not relevant. It's not relevant.
And I don't mean to be critical of that deputy assessor, Ann Gallagher. I forget how many properties that they have, 15,000, something like that. It's a huge job, to get it right. And I'm not criticizing them for not getting it right. What I'm criticizing them for is not providing the FOIL data in a timely manner, and for just deny. You should talk to me and let's try to get it right. But they don't want to do that. So I'm not criticizing them for getting it wrong. It's an impossible task to get right 100% of the time. Impossible. So that's not the issue. The issue's it's really a customer service issue.
Point taken. Let me take
I'm going to give you the same comparable sales.
And by the way, if I treated my clients the way that the city treats taxpayers, I wouldn't have any clients.
The value that he has, yes.
very good. I know we're over, but I want to finish this.
There's four things that go on in these assessment hearings: laziness, incompetence, cronyism, and outright fraud. We have laziness here because she hasn't reviewed the property. You know, I don't mean to criticize her. And like I said, they got 15,000 properties, but, you know, come on. You know, they're paid to do the job. And so when you get paid to do a job and you don't do it, you know, it's called fraud. And so that's laziness. Incompetence, I don't think she's incompetent. The board chairman of the Board of Assessment Review is demonstrating that he's incompetent because he doesn't understand, you know, the basic elements of this process. You know, I don't mean to be critical, but I'm critical because, you know, he apparently he's done no training, so he's been making the same mistakes for 20 years. But then there's cronyism. You know, we've got an insurance agent whose brother was the city auditor. There's some cronyism for you. I don't know who Joe knows. I don't know who, you know, all these connections. The one guy was with the fire department. Obviously, there's a connection there. There was nothing about. So these people are appointed by the Common Council. So the Common Council doesn't know anything about real estate valuation. So they're appointing people that don't know anything about real estate valuation. You know, they should go out and look for people who know something about real estate instead of just picking their crony friends, because that's what's going on here. You've got a paralegal, an insurance agent, and a fireman's credit union guy. Okay, Saya is theoretically qualified, but you know, there's some holes in his understanding of the law and valuation for assessment purposes.
Yeah, okay.
And of course, there's outright fraud, and there have been prosecutions of these deputy assessors over the past 20 years. I counted 6 of them, but I can't get the court records to verify them, so I don't want to slander anybody. I don't have the data because they won't give us the data. You know, they won't give us the personnel records, and the court records aren't available online. So I don't know. But my understanding is one guy got sentenced for 5 years. He probably spent a month in there. Who knows? But he was convicted. Pretty serious stuff. I think it was the New York State Comptroller's Office, and Fitzpatrick prosecuted the guy. So that's fraud, laziness, incompetence, cronyism, and fraud. I think we've got everything. You know, I'm not going to say that they're incompetent. They're just not doing a thorough job.
You know, Ed made some mistakes, and now, you know, she's paying for Ed's mistake.
All right, well, let's try to, understood, but let's try to move forward and see if, you know, we can continue to try to do the right thing.
He says it's understood, then he wants to continue to do the right thing. Right.
I would just like to see, when I ask for comparable sales report, comparable assessment report, I'm going to ask for cost valuation report for this property, and the cost valuation for each of those comps. And if they give that to me, it only takes a few minutes for them to do. This could be a much simpler, much quicker thing. You know, but it's also a customer service issue. You know, she pays a lot of money. Spend 3 minutes running a report. Is it too difficult? You know, why do you treat taxpayers as money? You know, they're your customer. Don't treat. And I didn't have any ideas with you. It was hard. I didn't know.
Yeah, we're paying these taxes, and we're expecting some customer service for it. You know, provide the data that we're entitled to by law. You know, it's just, you know, you're just getting checks in the mail. Do some work for it. Earn your money. You know, don't just, you know, you wing these assessments, and then you just deny to cover for the fact that you didn't even do an assessment. It's it's outrageous. And this Saya guy is just, covering up essentially their fraud. When you get paid to do a job and you don't do it, it's called fraud. They haven't done a revaluation in 29 years. The taxpayers paid these people to do this job, and they're not doing it.
On this case, but
Does it matter?
well, I will. And they will, but they don't.
Just one question. How come we don't get to see your information in advance?
Again, there's no discovery in a bar hearing by law. There's no discovery in a SCAR hearing by law. In Supreme Court, there is. So if we get the Supreme Court, she'll get my data. But I'm not required to provide it to her. Although, if she cooperates with me, I'm happy to provide it. I'm happy to discuss everything I know about the case. I'm not hiding anything from her. But the thing is, she wants my data, but I don't have any data. My data is her data. I'm asking for the comparable sales report. And I can review that and make certain it's accurate. We're going to review the comparable assessment report. We're going to review that. I'm going to get the cost valuation report on the subject property, and I'm going to compare the inventories and make certain the adjustments are done properly, instead of just arbitrarily as they're generated by the computer, because no individual did a valuation on this thing. So, she wants to know why she can't get my data. She already has my data because I'm using her data. I'm basically microanalyzing their reports, and I beat them over the head with their own data because they probably didn't even read their own data.
Because it's the law.
Thank you.
But the thing is, I would
Apparently, she doesn't care about the law. Concerning.
Hey, this is this way. If you give me yours, I'll give you mine. I promise.
All right.
And like I said, the Board of Assessment Review and Small Claims Assessment Review, the entire process, this is the petition that you file for this bar hearing is called an RP 524. It's a New York State form. This is New York State law that we're dealing with here. When we go to SCAR, it's called an RPTL 730A, because 730A is the section of the law that pertains to Small Claims Assessment Review. 524 is the section of the state law that pertains to the Board of Assessment Review hearings. The whole thing is based on the law. And she's there like, whatever.
100% into doing this transparently, both at bar and at SCAR. You give me your data, you're like a week ahead, I'll give you mine for sure. I promise.
You can see the disdain that she has for me. She's never even met me. She's never even spoken to me. And she hates my guts and isn't listening to a single word I'm saying. Look at her. She's not listening to what I'm saying.
Okay. So we're well over time, so we've got to call it at this point. But we'll take everything that you submitted and everything that the city submitted, and we'll make a decision, and then the city will send.
She's not listening to what I'm saying. She's dug her heels in. She's always right. She's never wrong, even though she didn't do evaluation. And these people on the Board of Assessment Review, other than maybe Saya, they don't know what I'm talking about. They don't know anything about real estate valuation. They don't know the law. Maybe she does. Maybe she's she's a paralegal, but I doubt that as a paralegal that she dealt in Article 7 real estate Supreme Court cases. Maybe she did, but maybe she knows a little bit something about the law. But what does she know about real estate valuation? She doesn't know anything.
You know this first week of April.
Appreciate it.
All right. Thank you very much for coming in, both of you.
Now I'm going to appear as though I'm a cranky old man here, but the guy I'll be talking to, who's behind the over to the right, is the top attorney for the city of Syracuse, and we've got a history. I beat him pro se in state Supreme Court. It must be embarrassing for him to be beaten by a pro se idiot. And does he have no pride? Yeah, and I'm going to beat him again.
87-2G, public officers, 87-2G.
The 87-2G spells out exactly what they have to provide And I'm going to talk about, I'm going to mention Eckel versus Nassau County, which is the appellate level case law that addresses this issue. And in my state Supreme Court case against the city, the judge ruled that they have to provide those reports, and this lawyer is even after I won that lawsuit, that lawyer is telling the assessors to only give me what they submit at bar, which is that one report, and they want to hold off so I don't have it for bar, and it's their attorney is advising them to break the law, and that's why I'm a little cranky here, I think the guy coming in behind me, didn't like my attitude too much, because he doesn't understand what it is that I've been through with these people and how they behave. Most taxpayers, they don't know the law, and they just absorb the abuse, and these people just do whatever they damn well please, and they just ignore the law, like they did in my two previous cases. I made the argument that they violated welcome strangers, selectively assessed the property. It was on a lawful assessment, and they just disregard it because they want to. They're doing their determinations based on feeling, not the law, and not based on proper valuation techniques.
Eckel versus Nassau County is the prevailing case law on the matter. There's no doubt I'm entitled to that data. 5 days to acknowledge, 20 days to provide it. Going out a month and a half is not.
It's this guy to the right in the front row. His name is John Block. He's the head attorney for the city of Syracuse. And it's just disingenuous behavior, obstructing the public. It's just not, they're not doing business in a forthright manner. You should behave with integrity. And he's not. They're just denying everybody. And it's not right.
I cut it because it only takes 2 minutes to run every one. You have no justification.
Why does it take a month and a half to do a 2-minute report? Why do I have to sue them in Supreme Court to get what I'm entitled to by law that was established by a state Supreme Court judge, that was confirmed in an appellate level state Supreme Court judge, and yet this lawyer is telling them not to give it to me? And I just don't think it's good legal advice, and I don't think he gave him legal advice on the welcome stranger issue either. I don't know what he's doing sitting there. But they show up in the SCAR hearings. Usually him and this other young attorney who's clueless. They had 2 lawyers and the assessor in a hearing that should never have happened. They're just wasting taxpayers' money. But they get paid a salary, so they're good. It's not their money. Taxpayers pay for it. And I do not want to sue these people. Because it doesn't cost them anything, it costs the taxpayers. I don't want to cost the taxpayers money. But I want the city to abide by the law and do this job properly. And they're just winging it, and they're getting paid to wing it. And I don't think that's appropriate.
And not if you intentionally delay it.
Let's go with 101 Avondale.
You see how he's blowing me off there? I'm telling them if they intentionally violate FOIL, that is unlawful. And there was a recent case in Saratoga Springs where a guy was able to get the DA to prosecute one of the public employees for intentionally withholding FOIL data, and they prosecuted him and convicted him. So then, it's a violation. It's not a misdemeanor or anything. It's only a $600 fine. But it's a big, long, drawn out court procedure, and he was represented by a lawyer. Well, the guy tried to get the city to pay his attorney's fees and indemnify him. Well, they can't. The other guy sued him again to stop the city from paying his attorney's fees. So the guy got stuck paying the public employee had to pay his own attorney's fees, which might bankrupt him. Either that or the attorney gets stiffed. Either way, I'm good. But that's the first time that's ever happened. And but it may happen again right here. If they intentionally violate FOIL, I'm going to look to depose people, get interrogatories, and get to the bottom of whether or not they intentionally evaded my FOIL in violation of New York state law. And I'm going to get one of these people convicted. It could be that lawyer right there. We'll get to the bottom of it. It might be multiple people. In my previous lawsuit, I named the mayor, and I named Matt Oja, who's the head assessor, who's also an attorney. His name was on it. If they violate the same section of the law, they'll be in contempt of court. And I don't know. We'll see how that goes. But let's see if there's anything more.
It is a crime. So, yeah, it's not. It's a violation. It's not a misdemeanor. But if you end up paying your own verdict.
Yeah. So yeah, you just look at the way that they're not even looking at me, and they didn't like what it is that I had to say. But tell me one thing that I said that wasn't correct. That's how these hearings go. It's a crony clown show is what it is, and I don't mean to be personally derogatory towards people. They're providing a public service apparently, but they're not doing the job properly, and I'd like to see some more integrity in the process of both the Board of Assessment Review, and the assessor. I think the assessors are capable of doing the job properly, but they're just not used to doing it because they've never had to do it, because nobody enforces it, because the public doesn't have the time or the money to take these people to Supreme Court. It's such a long, drawn-out, expensive, arduous task, all for what? So so they're able to get away with it, except with me. The buck's going to stop here, and we're going to get to the bottom of this. They'll probably deny me, and then we'll go to SCAR, and I'll beat them in SCAR. But if they were smart, they would probably meet it halfway. So it's not worth it for me to to do this. It's not worth it for me to do it anyway, because it's only $150,000 property. I'm not doing this for the money. I'm doing it because this particular taxpayer is this is perpetual money. She doesn't have any kids in this school district, and she's paying the school district, and then she's paying 20% too high, and it's not right. And to take that 20% and cover it over the course of 20 years, it adds up to a lot of money, and so we're just trying to get it right, nothing more and nothing less. This is Mike Franklin, the property tax guy.